Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and boy, oh boy, don't we have something to talk about today. If you read the title of this episode or saw the thumbnail, we're talking about the Hollywood strike. Yes, Hollywood is shut down. It is there are no movies being made, no movies currently in development right now, nothing. Due to the Writers Guild of America striking, along with the Screen Actors Guild striking as well. And it's caused a complete shutdown in Hollywood. There's no writers and there's no actors. And so there's no movies, no television shows, no nothing. Now, of course, this doesn't affect movies that have already been completed, already slated to come out in the next few months or whatever. So all that's fine and good. But it will have an impact later on down the line because the writers went on strike, rightfully so, for the reasons they went on strike for. But movies were still being made. Movies were still in development because they were working off of screenplays that were already written. And so you could still finish the production on those particular properties. And there are a plethora of screenplays that haven't been produced that you can still make movies off of. And so theoretically, I'm not saying this is right, but theoretically, Hollywood can still keep going because there are multiple screenplays that have been written that you can continue making movies off of. But with the Screen Actors Guild or the actors going on strike, that shut down everything because films that were in production, meaning currently shooting, as of July the 14th of 2023, was shut down at midnight. It was shut down. And so, for instance, Deadpool 3 was shooting in, I think, England. I think it was shooting in. And at midnight, it just went pop. They shut it down. The actors went on strike. And so that movie is on hold. So depending on, and what makes it bad, I guess, for us, the fans, those who enjoy these movies or looking forward to these movies, it means that if this strike goes on for months, that these release dates are going to get pushed back yet again, that were already pushed back due to the pandemic and all this here. And you have reconfiguring of release dates and all this here. But now it's a possibility that they're going to be pushed back even further, depending on how long this strike goes on. But today we're going to go over why the writers are striking and why the actors are striking. And in our review today, we're going to review a film that is probably the best strike film, even though it wasn't an actual strike, but it has to deal, it does deal with unions. And this is the actors union and the writers union, the guild is another word for union. There is only one film that we can review to kind of put a button on this subject, and it is none other than the 1979 Academy Award winning film starring the great Sally Fields, Norma Ray. And we're going to go dive into that film after we go over all of the grievances that has been expressed by the writers and the actors in good old Hollywood. So let's start with the writers, because the writers were the first to strike. So let's start with the writers. On May the 2nd of 2023, the Writers Guild of America, which represents 11,000 screenwriters, went on strike over an ongoing labor dispute with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. It is the largest interruption to American television and film production since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, as well as the largest labor stoppage the WGA has performed since their last strike, which took place in 2007 and 2008. Now, one of the main issues that led to this strike is the residuals for streaming services. You know, your Netflix, your Max, your Paramount Plus, Apple TV Plus, you know, all your streaming services. The WGA claimed that the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, I'm just going to call them the studios because they represent the studios. So I don't have to say that long name throughout this report. But the WGA claims that the studio's share of such residuals have cut much of the writer's average income compared to a decade ago. Writers also wanted artificial intelligence, such as Chat GPT, to be used only as a tool that can help with research and facilitate script ideas and not as a tool to replace them. See, this is a thing. This is an actual thing here that the studios were looking at, replacing these writers with artificial intelligence to write the scripts, you know, and just bringing in writers to kind of, you know, fine tune it and whatnot like that. But as far as the residuals, yeah, that is a big thing as well, because streaming services don't report, I guess you could say, accurate numbers as far as views and who's watching it, because that's how they get their residuals, and that's how these people get paid. And see, I should have started off with this, but I'll say it now. A large perception of laymen like me, you, and everybody else listening is people in Hollywood make millions of dollars, and they you know, every time they make a movie, they, you know, you look at the box office and you think that the people working on this movie makes that money. No, that's not the truth. And to be completely honest with you, a lot of writers and a lot of actors don't make a lot of money. It's, you know, you, aside from the big stars, you know, the A-list stars, you know, your Brad Pitts, your Tom Cruises, who else, George Clooney's and stuff like that, who demand these high salaries, you know, $20 million a movie, $30 million a movie, stuff like that. Yeah, those are few and far between. And I'm just talking actors here, but we'll get to the actors later. But writers, how many writers do you know? How many writers in Hollywood do you know by name that you can say, oh, that movie was written by such and such? You don't know. You honestly, you don't know. But it's a lot of these writers don't get a chunk of that box office or the you know, the residuals. Geez, I couldn't get the name out, that they rightfully deserve, you know. So it's it's a thing. This is a serious thing. And as far as the AI of it all, I can see that too. You know, you basically trying to replace these writers with artificial intelligence. You know, like their job isn't needed, but artificial intelligence. You ever watched a good movie, and we're going to review an excellent movie a little later on. You can tell me that AI can write something like that. You know, AI doesn't write human emotion. Now, granted, actors have a lot to do with that, but the actors need something to work off of, and that is the screenplay. And AI, you're not going to make me believe it. Now, if AI is able to do that, then we really got problems, because now Skynet is going to take over the world. If they can simulate human emotion, I just don't see it. But back to this story. On May the 2nd, 2020, the latest minimum basic agreement, or the MBA, became the collective bargaining agreement that covered most of the work done by the Writers Guild writers. The MBA was an agreement that established a minimum wage for television and film writers. In television, the minimum base agreement only applied to those who write for broadcast television shows, which, you know, consist of ABC, CBS, NBC, like that, and not for streaming services. This was very clear when comparing late night talk shows that were produced for broadcast television, such as The Late Show with Stephen Colbert on CBS, and the problem with Jon Stewart, which is produced and streamed by Apple TV Plus. The writers who worked on the problem were not covered by the NBA, and therefore they had to negotiate individually with the streaming company for their pay. And as a result, they were paid less than writers who wrote for The Late Show while doing the same amount of work. This pattern held true with other shows in two categories. The NBA expired on May the 1st of 2023. The Writers Guild estimated its proposal would yield writers about $429 million a year, whereas the studio's offer would yield them $86 million a year. That's a big difference. I mean, I don't think there's a bigger gap in any type of negotiation than that. One disputed issue is the guilds wanting requirements for mandatory staffing and duration of employment terms to be added to their contract, which would require all shows to be staffed with a minimum number of writers for a minimum amount of time, whether needed or not. This is according to the AMPTP. Another important proposal that the Writers Guild is advocating for is to ensure each member of a writing team receive their own pension and their own health care funds. The studios rejected this proposal and did not offer a counter proposal. At the same time, there was a tentative agreement between the Writers Guild and the studios to have 0.5% of negotiated minimums for all WGA minimums shifted into pensions and health funds. Now, on April the 18th of this year, 97.85% of members of the Writers Guild of America voted to go on strike if they failed to reach a satisfactory agreement with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which represent the major film and television studios in Hollywood. By May 1st, the AMPTP engaged in lengthy negotiations with the WGA on behalf of Amazon Studios as well as MGM Holdings, Apple Studios, Lionsgate, NBC Universal, Netflix, Paramount Global, Sony Pictures, the Walt Disney Company, and Warner Brothers Discovery, but failed to reach a deal before the mandated deadline. As a result, the leadership of the Writers Guild of America West and the Writers Guild of America East unanimously approved a strike on the eve of May the 2nd, the first of its kind since, as I mentioned before, 2007 and 2008, 15 years ago. The Hollywood Reporter reported that the WGA had set some provisional rules for writers during the strike. The Writers Guild stated that writers cannot do any writing, revising, pitching, or discussing future projects with companies that are members of the AMPTP. The Writers Guild also stated that fiction podcasts that are produced by companies against which the Guild and its members are striking must stop production. The Guild said that they hope that writers of animated series not covered by the Writers Guild, but by the Animation Guild, would seek advice from the Writers Guild on whether or not their work as a writer was counter to the activities of the strike, and if so, to cease such work for the duration of the strike. The Guild noted that while they cannot punish non-Guild writers who write for companies against which the union is striking, they promise to ban such writers from future Guild membership. The WGA instructed members to begin picketing on May the 2nd, 2023 at 1 p.m. Pacific. Some places where the WGA were picketing included AMC, AMC Networks, Amazon Studios, MGM, CBS Redford, Television City, Disney, 20th Century Studios, Lionsgate, Stars, Netflix, Paramount, MTV, Sony, Universal, Warner Brothers, including this Burbank division, 30 Rock, NBC Universal, Broadway Stages, HBO, Silver Cup Studios, Steiner Studios, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Warner Brothers Discovery up front. During the strike, the Writers Guild of America instructed writers facing financial hardship due to the strike to apply for an entertainment community fund. The entertainment community fund helped people in the entertainment industry with financial trouble find affordable housing and maintain health care and senior care coverage. On May the 10th of this year, it was reported that writers had pledged $1.7 million in the entertainment community fund. Among the prominent donors were showrunners and producers J.J. Abrams, Greg Berlanti, Adam McKay, Ryan Murphy, Shonda Rhimes, and John Wells. On June the 7th and 8th of this year, picketing in the Northeast, namely in New York, was paused due to poor air quality due to those wildfires in Canada, where it looked like doomsday in New York for for 2 days. Anybody saw those pictures? It was crazy, and they suspended it for those 2 days, but they went back on June the 9th. Lionsgate suspended BMF line producer Ian Wolfe following an altercation with striking writers who were picketing outside of BMF's production headquarters. According to first-hand accounts with writers, Wolfe attempted to intimidate the writers who were picketing on the sidewalk next to the studio's entrance by accelerating his car towards them and stopping just short of hitting them. After first claiming he did not see them, Wolfe later admitted to trying to scare them. According to Smiths, Wolfe later unsuccessfully tried to convince Teamsters Local 728 to cross picket lines, but they refused. Lionsgate released a statement saying, "We take acts of intimidation and threats of violence seriously and investigate them thoroughly. As we continue to investigate, we have sent home the individual involved." The WGA also released a statement which read, "Workers should not be threatened with physical harm when exercising their right for public protest and picket against unfair wages and working conditions." On July the 12th of this year, Deadline Hollywood reported that the AMPTP and the major Hollywood studios did not plan to return to negotiations with the WGA until maybe late October of this year at the earliest. The studio execs who anonymously spoke to Deadline stated that by October, many writers would be financially strained, which they believe would allow them to be in a better position to dictate the terms of any new deal. Representatives for the AMPTP distanced themselves from the anonymous source, claiming they remain committed to signing a deal as soon as possible. Now that's cold-blooded, bro. If you read that article, the article basically, this source says that by October, these writers will start losing their homes. They'll start getting foreclosed, cars getting repoed and stuff like that, and that will force the writers into a desperation move in order to just sign any deal to get the deal done so they can get back to work. That's basically what this Hollywood exec was prepared to do, or they're prepared to do. And judging by what a lot of people are saying, they haven't even tried to negotiate. So that is some accuracy to that, because nobody came out and denied that this was said. Nobody denied it. But the projects that have been affected by the writer's strike so far, Blade from Marvel Studios and Disney, it's been put on pause due to this writer's strike. Community the movie over at Peacock, filming was expected to begin I think around now, but they put the pause on that. Good Fortune at Lionsgate, that film has been canceled. Another Marvel film, Thunderbolts, that's been put on pause. Twisters, which is the sequel to Twister, that's been put on pause. And as far as television, you can pretty much say everything. Everything's been on delay. 911 Lone Star, Abbott Elementary, the Alien series that was on going to premiere on FX. Everything. Everything on television has been put on pause. But this is all due to the writer's strike. Well, not so much everything, because there are some films that were not affected by this writer's strike, and that was Beetlejuice 2. That screenplay was already completed. Captain America, Brave New World, that screenplay was already completed. Deadpool 3, Fantastic Four, Gladiator 2, Good Burger 2, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, Mortal Kombat Part 2, all those films continue to film, at least until we get to our next part of this story. That wasn't affected by the writer's strike. Now, what we're about to talk about now, it did affect it, and that is the SAG-AFTRA strike, and that is the Screen Actors Guild, along with the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. They are a combined guild, and they went on strike on July the 14th. And it was for similar reasons, but we're going to go down the line of events that led to the strike. On July the 14th of 2023, the American Actors Union's SAG-AFTRA went on strike after an ongoing labor dispute with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Yeah, those fellas again. It has coincided with the Writers Guild of America strike as part of a broader Hollywood labor dispute. The strike marks the first time that actors have had a labor dispute in the United States since the 1980 writer's strike, and the first time that the actors and the writers have walked out simultaneously since 1960. Both the 2023 Screen Actors Guild and Writers Guild of America labor dispute have contributed to the biggest interruption in American television and film industries since the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic a couple of years ago. Now, weeks after the Writers Guild of America went on strike, SAG-AFTRA's National Board of Directors unanimously agreed to pursue a strike, authorizing vote ahead of a renewal contract. SAG-AFTRA approved a new contract in 2020 that would expire on June the 30th. The union stated that it did not intend to strike, but that it sought to give its negotiators maximum bargaining leverage ahead of negotiations on June the 7th. SAG-AFTRA cited several issues in negotiations, including economic fairness, residuals, regulating the use of AI, and told its members that the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers would cut actors' salary to pad corporate profits. In a video released on May the 30th, SAG-AFTRA members Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Jane Smart, and Camille Nandaji appealed to constituents to vote to strike, but reserved that it was solely a bargaining tool. On June 2nd, SAG-AFTRA approved the strike authorized by 98% margin, according to the union. High-profile members included Quinta Bronson, Jennifer Lawrence, and Remy Malik, signaling their willingness to strike ahead of the deadline to achieve a transformative deal despite extremely productive negotiations. SAG-AFTRA agreed to extend negotiations to midnight on July the 30th in an attempt to avoid a strike, but negotiations broke down in July. SAG-AFTRA surveyed members on a strike on July the 5th and began preparing picket signs 2 days later. The AMPTP agreed to a last-minute request to moderate from the Federal Moderation and Consulting Services on July 11th. Congressional and Public Affairs Director, I'm going to try to get his name, Greg Rilson, stated that a federal moderator would be present the following day. In turn, SAG-AFTRA accused the AMPTP of attempting to extend negotiations beyond the deadline and retaliate that it would not continue negotiations after July the 12th. A number of high-profile actors, including Jennifer Lawrence and Remy Malik, then affirmed their support again by signing a letter urging the union to take aggressive measures and stating their willingness to strike. So, on July the 13th, with no agreement between SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP, the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee voted unanimously to recommend a strike to the union's national board. The national board held a vote officially approving the strike. SAG-AFTRA president Fran Drescher, yes, Fran Drescher from The Nanny, she is the president of the Screen Actors Guild, announced the strike would begin at midnight on July the 14th. The cast of Oppenheimer left the film's London premiere ahead of the announcement to walk out. It was staged, of course. Everybody knew the premiere was at 12 noon, at least 12 noon here, and in London it was simultaneously. So when the strike was announced, they got up in the screening, they was in the theater, and the actors walked out in solidarity. I thought that was pretty awesome. That was pretty cool that they did that. Joined by chief negotiator Duncan Crabtree Ireland, Fran Drescher argued that the strike was a reluctant last resort and described the proposed contract as moving around furniture on the Titanic. In the press conference, Crabtree alleged that the AMPTP attempted to include a proposal that allowed studios to, now get this, because this is crazy. This is insane. This here, the studios, this would allow studios to, for a one-time fee equivalent to 1 day's pay, that's about $200 or $300, just so y'all can know. This would allow studios to have exclusive and indefinite rights to extras' likeness. This includes the use of generating AI to replicate them on screen. And so to break that down, basically, like if you're an extra or a background actor, and these extras make a good living, you know, being extras in films. That's why you ever watch a movie and you see background people in different movies and you're like, man, I've seen them in something before, because you have seen them in something before. They have a career of being background actors. But in any event, instead of paying these people $200 to $300 a day to be an extra, they were going to bring them in for 1 day, scan their face, their likeness, and pay them for that day and never pay them again. But you can use their likeness over and over and over and over again. Basically scan them into a computer and CGI put your likeness in any film that they want forever. forever and you'll not get paid for it. They can put you in the next Avatar movie that makes $50 billion and you'll never get a dime. You'll never get a dime of that. That's what the negotiation, the proposal that the studios were trying to include in the contract. That is crazy to me. For an example, take this for an example. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, years ago, they were background actors. They were actually extras on A Field of Dreams, the Kevin Costner baseball film. They were in that movie somewhere, but they were extras, and that inspired them to have a career, to actually pursue this as a career. That led to Good Will Hunting. That led to The Bourne Identity. That led to Ben Affleck directing some of the best movies you could watch. You know, The Town, Gone Baby Gone, him being Batman and stuff like that. This is what it led to. So let's say that this proposal in AI existed back when Field of Dreams came out, right? I think that was in what, 89? I know that he was somewhere around there. But let's say it happened then and they scanned their likeness then. We never get that. We never get that. we don't get The Bourne Identity. Well, we never get it with Matt Damon. You know, we don't get these films and from these filmmakers. We definitely don't get Good Will Hunting because they wrote that. You know what I'm saying? So just think of that. That is crazy and wild to me. And I think that is the biggest spit in the face to these actors that you can do as a studio. As part of rules established on July the 10th, actors cannot engage in film and television productions and cannot take part in promotional work such as press junkets, film premieres, and events, including San Diego Comic-Con, which is coming up this weekend. Well, actually, it's this weekend. As we speak, it's going on, at least the time of this release. But there's no actors there. Internationally, SAG-AFTRA members are authorized to continue work in the UK under pre-established equality collective bargaining agreements, as UK laws criminalize solidarity strikes. So that means like the House of the Dragon, the second season of House of the Dragon, that's still going on. They still filming that in the UK because they are on a different guild, different actors union than the Screen Actors Guild. And that's all right with me because I'm fiending for season 2 of House of the Dragon, but I would like to see some solidarity, to be completely fair and honest. But here is the list of films that they slammed on the brakes until last week when they announced the strike. The Amateur for 20th Century Studios, Avatar 3 and Avatar 4 for 20th Century Studios, Beetlejuice 2 for Warner Brothers, The Complete Unknown for Searchlight Pictures, The Conjuring Last Rites for Warner Brothers, Deadpool 3, I said it earlier, also got the kibosh. Fantastic Four also halted production. Gladiator 2 for Paramount, It Ends With Us for Sony, Juror number 2 at Warner Brothers, Lilo and Stitch, the live action remake at Disney, stopped production. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 for Paramount, Mortal Kombat 2 for Warner Brothers, Mufasa, the Lion King prequel. They need to just stop that anyway. Just don't do it. Superman Legacy at Warner Brothers in DC, that has halted pre-production. Twisters at Universal, The Bad Boys 4, that film has stopped production, as well as Venom 3. Thank God, that has also stopped production. And so there you have it. That is the grievances and the chain of events that have led us up to this point. The strikes are still going on, and as the time of this recording, there has been zero movement in negotiations. So hopefully this doesn't last too long. I mean, the sad part about it all, they both need each other. there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They need each other. One can't work without the other. The studios can't do anything without the actors and the writers. Writers can't do anything without the studio. Well, I guess theoretically, no. I guess theoretically, the studios, the actors and the writers can just start making independent films or whatever. But who's going to distribute the films? And so I guess, yeah, they need each other. It's at the end of the day. But some of the proposals from the studios is downright ridiculous. That's not to say that the actors and the writers aren't asking for ridiculous amounts as well. I don't know all the parameters of exactly what the dollar amount that the actors and the writers are asking as far as residuals are concerned, but there got to be some type of common ground here. It's got to be a point where we can say, okay, we can compromise with this, that. Because at the end of the day, like I said before, most of these writers, they aren't big time writers. The majority of writers are struggling. The majority of actors are struggling. There aren't too many superstars out there. Just look at the box office. There aren't too many big name superstars making $30-40 million motion pictures here. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these actors who are represented, who are a part of the guild, don't make a lot of money. So the little money that they do get, the little residual checks that they do get, that's what keeps the bills paid. And if they're working for basically nothing on these streaming services, I can see where they mad. Me and you who work, I guess you could quote unquote normal jobs, 9 to 5s, do you go to work for nothing on one day? Yeah, you work Monday through Friday, but on Thursdays you just work for free. You all right with that? No, indeed, no. Every time you on that job, every minute, every hour, you want your money. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing here with these actors and writers. They deserve a little more respect than that. I'm not saying give them the whole kitty, but good Lord, man. You want to scan actors' faces so you could just use them anytime you want for nothing? That is crazy. That's wow. But anywho's, that is the state of Hollywood as we see it right now. It is a complete dumpster fire over there. Hollywood is burning, people. But anywho's, let's get into this review. Let's jump into this film that I absolutely enjoyed, and I watched it for the first time this year. Actually, this week. When I wanted to do this show, and it was the first thing that popped in my head. I do remember seeing snippets of it when I was younger, but I never sat down and watched it in its entirety. And I finally did last weekend, and it is Norma Ray from the year 1979. And that's the reason why I never sat down and watched it. That's the same year I was born. And so, of course, I did not go to the theater to see this unless Mama went while I was pregnant and I watched it through the womb. I don't know. But this is a film that stars Sally Fields as the title character, and it is directed by Martin Ritt. And this film follows Norma Ray Webster, a factory worker with a little formal education in North Carolina, who, after her and her co-workers' health is compromised due to poor working conditions, become involved in a trade union activities at a textile facility where she works. Also starring with Sally Fields, you have Bo Bridges, Ron Lieberman, Pat Hingle, Barbara Braxley, and Gail Strickland. And this is a awesome movie. When I sat down and watched this movie, honestly, the thing that went through my head as the closing credits were going up the screen, I was like, man, they do not make movies like this anymore. This is an actual film. It didn't have action. It wasn't inundated with sex and nudity and all that there. It wasn't uh this political drama, nothing. It was just a story. And it was a simple story, but it kept you engaged. And a lot of movies around this era, even before this time, were like that. And these were real films. And it's not disrespecting movies that come out now. They have their place. And they're good in their own right. But it really shined in this movie because this was just acting. This was just a real well directed, well written, beautifully acted movie, and it kept my interest. For 2 hours I sat there and watched a film about labor disputes and the formation of a union. And it's like, man, this is crazy. I'm so engaged in this story. And mainly because in this film you're following this title character, Norma Wade, played beautifully by Sally Fields, and you're so engaged with her. I mean, instantly you enjoy her. You love her. She is not perfect, and they never displayed her as being this perfect person. When we first meet her, she's working at this cotton mill and this textile plant, and she's a single mother. She's living with her parents, and she goes out at night and lies to her daddy, even though she's like a 30-year-old woman, and sleeping with this married man, and having a family. She was not perfect by no stretch of the imagination. And she basically was a floozy. She has these flings with other men. It ends with just this one man. She's a floozy. She's the town floozy. And that right off the bat because she has two children with they have two different daddies. One of them is dead, and the other just don't care. He's not in her life or the kid's life. But she never says who it is. I don't think she knows who it is. To be 100% honest with you, well, watching the movie, I don't think she knows who the father is. But actually, no. I think she has a picture of him, and she gave it to the when she was telling them who their dad really is and whatnot. But anywho's, man, this movie is amazing. This is a really heartbreaking, tense. I mean, tense. There actually was tense moments in this movie that it shouldn't be, because it's like I said, a simple story, but it is well made. I mean, from opening shot to the final shot. But I don't know. I got to keep talking about Sally Fields here because I feel if I don't say enough about her performance, it's not doing her justice. She won Best Actress at the Academy Awards for this film, and rightfully so. But I mean, she was so strong and independent, yet dependent. She had that mouth, and she was willing to fight for what's right. She was willing to fight, and her joining forces with Ron Libman character of Ruben was awesome. I love the connection there, and this could have went sideways too. It could have went the typical route of this romantic relationship between those two, and it didn't go that way. Even though it was kind of bandied about that's what they were, wanted to do. 'Cause I think they did. They really loved each other. They loved each other, but he didn't pursue it, and she didn't need it. They respected each other, I think, more than the actual physical love that they could have had with each other. And I thought that was just great to watch because you get tired of the typical, the female lead and the male lead, it just automatically, boom, they get together. We didn't go that route. But his performance was great. Bo Bridges was great also as her husband. Actually, all the actors. It was just well acted. But I especially love the story of how this textile plant tried to just fight against this union or these workers getting unionized and uh basically pitting the whites against the blacks, you know. Just putting notes up. It was just crazy, and how easy you can divide people with just a note. Putting a note up on a bulletin board and being manipulated by corporate America. That was the bigger picture here. You know, how corporate America can divide people, and it has divided people. And this union was there to unite. It's union. The definition of the word union. You know, it's there for us to be together, for the, you know, as workers to get together and fight for the betterment of everybody at this plant. But they just fought against this union tooth and nail, got people to join in with them, even though people were struggling. But it convinced them that you need me. You can't do this, because if you do this, we're gonna fire you, or, you know, cut your pay or whatever. And for Sally Field's character of Norma Ray to put on this fight, to join this fight, to be the first one to sign up for this union and be a voice of the people. And I mean, bruh, powerful performance, powerful movie. The scene when when Norma Ray told her children, because she had got arrested and you know, taken out of the textile plant, you know, because she stood up and had to sign union to everybody, had everybody stand with her and whatnot, and she got fired. She got put in jail, and they basically told her that everything's about to come out. Everything all the stuff you did in the past, everything's about to come out. You know, how she was a floozy, and you know, and all this other stuff. So to get ahead of the curve, when she got released from jail, she came home and she woke her kids up, and they were about, I'll say 7, 8, you know, probably not even that old. But she broke down and told them the truth, you know, that your daddy is such and such. Your daddy is such and such. You're going to hear this about me. I've done things. I'm not perfect. And for her to tell her children, I'm not perfect. I've done things. And she had to confess that, but she was willing to make that sacrifice. And, bruh, I mean, it brought chills through me. But it was such an awesome, powerful performances. This is one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. Honest to God, I'm not just speaking in hyperbole. This is one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And it made me appreciate Sally Field so much more. Because up to this point, it was Steel Magnolias for me. That was her most powerful up to this point. Even though that's still a powerful performance, but this takes the cake. I mean, amazing performance. I don't know what else to say about Norma Ray other than the fact it is a certified classic. It went on to be nominated for 4 Academy Awards in the 52nd annual Academy Awards, which included Best Picture. But it didn't win Best Picture, but it did win 2 for Best Original Song for its theme song, It Goes Like It Goes, and for Best Actress for Sally Fields. And the film currently sits in the United States Library of Congress for its cultural and historical significance. Norma Ray from 1979 gets a letter grade of an A+. Oh, what a movie. What a performance from Sally Fields. God, I love that woman. So, yeah, man, Hollywood is in deep doo-doo. We are in the middle of this strike, and honest to God, don't even know when it's going to end. We don't know when it's going to end because nobody is coming to the table. Nobody is coming to the table. And To be fair, going by that Deadline Hollywood article, it don't look like the studios care. They are willing to play the long game. They're willing to go into late October, when it gets desperate for these writers. Not so much the actors, but I think same thing with them as well. Uh, Till you get to the point of desperation, and you're going to take any deal that's on the table at that point because you just want to get back to work. And I think that's what the studios is banking on. And so we're going to see who flinches first. Granted, this is unprecedented. At first, that was with the writers. This was before the actors went on strike when that statement was made by that executive. And so with the actors going on strike as well, will that change their tune? Because this is the first time in over 50, 60 years that we've had both of these unions strike. So let's see what the impact will be. Hopefully it ends soon, because selfishly, there's a lot of films that were in production that I was excited for. And, you get tired of the pushbacks, dealing with them for the pandemic, with all those films being pushed back. And that's why you have a log jam of films right now coming out every week. It seems like it's 3 or 4 movies a week now, because they're trying to recoup from what happened during the pandemic. And basically, we're going to head that way again if this doesn't get resolved soon. But I will say, in the last writer strike is how we got a plethora of reality TV shows. That was the TV's contingency plan for this writer strike. So don't be surprised if you see 1,000,001 more reality TV shows pop up in the next few months due to this writer strike. So the world has not been right since. Reality TV has destroyed the world, I think, in its own way. But yeah, man, this is I hope this comes to an end. I hope that cooler heads can prevail, and we'll see who flinches first. I would like to know what you think about this writer strike and this actors strike. And do you think that the actors are being greedy and the writers being greedy, or is the studios being greedy? Well, I think they're all greedy. Everybody's greedy to an extent, but it's all about fairness at this point. But I would like to know whose side do you lean towards? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look me up on Twitter at KB Radio Network, and on other social media platforms, just look up the KB Radio Network. Also look up the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Also, 5 stars, reviews, and sharing if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever it is you're currently listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everyone, thank you for joining me for this show. I hope I said something that will help you continue to listen to movie goodness on the KB Radio Network. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love one another. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.